With every passing day, it seems like there's another new report on the Clinton Foundation and corruption there. Earlier today, Politico, which is very nice to the Clintons normally, released a piece entitled, quote, "Bill Clinton aides use tax dollars to subsidize foundation private email support." Well, Clinton's spokesman called the report demonstrably false, though it wasn't actually, because it was based on documents released by the Clinton Foundation itself. This news came as new emails show a top executive at the foundation asked Huma Abedin to obtain diplomatic passports for himself and for others. That's not allowed. And the State Department agreed today to turn over all the detailed planning schedules from Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State to the Associated Press by mid-October, before the election. A major change from earlier reports that said the schedule wouldn't become public until after Election Day. Joining me now to digest all of this, the author of Cleaning House, Exposing Our Government Secrets and Lies, Tom Fitton. He's also with Judicial Watch. And our favorite filmmaker, Dinesh D'Souza. His new movie is called Hillary's America, and it's set for re-release in 400 theaters nationwide this weekend. It is great to see you both. First, Tom Fitton, to you. This report from Politico, which basically sucks up to the Clintons most of the time, it's a pretty solid report, it seems to me, shows that Bill Clinton took $13 million in taxpayers' money to support people, his employees, when his foundation was generating $2 billion of money over that time. How can this be allowed?
Well, you know, there's a certain subsidy that former presidents get to run their offices, but according to the Politico report, the monies that Clinton was seeking were far beyond anything any other former president was asking for. And it raises the question again, who was running this email server, and was it truly private? We've never believed it was private in any legal sense, and here quite literally you have an allegation suggesting that taxpayer money was used to set up this allegedly private server from which Mrs. Clinton, or on which Mrs. Clinton conducted all of her government business, and when asked for the records, she destroyed half of them. You know, lots of crimes potentially there and misconduct.
But also just weird behavior. Dinesh, I hate to ask any guest to play shrink, okay, especially when they're not licensed to do so. But what is this about? I mean, it's so pathological, the idea that you stiff the government when you're as rich as Bill Clinton, when you and your wife have made $250 million personally in the last 15 years, and yet you're asking them to pay the health insurance for your employees because you can't help yourself? What is this about?
Well, I think it's very obvious that the two Clintons are completely pathological, and in some ways it's a real pity that the law keeps giving them a pass, allowing them to stay one step ahead of the posse, because it sends them the message that they are literally above the law. And so I think there's a certain shamelessness that characterizes their conduct. But now when you ask this question about her behavior with the private server and with the foundation, I think that there's a connection between those two things, because it takes a lot of trouble to set up this whole private system. She needed to get the collaboration of aides to do it. And so the big question is, why do it? You get all kinds of briefings about classified information. Why go to the trouble and take the reckless step of deleting all those emails if it is not the case that Hillary Clinton, during her tenure as Secretary of State, was conducting a kind of private foreign policy for her benefit and the benefit of the Clinton Foundation? That would be a major story, and I would make sense why she would go to great lengths to cover up that story, because that would be her real foreign policy.
And really degrading our government in the process. Tom, I want to play you an exchange between Joe Biden and a reporter from today, mostly because it's amusing. But keep in mind as you watch this, Joe Biden's never running for anything again. He can say whatever he wants. And yet when asked about the Clinton Foundation, here was his response. Watch this.
Do you think Americans should be concerned at all about the ethics of the Clinton Foundation? Has the Clinton Foundation always been 100% ethical in your view?
Look, I think the Clinton Foundation, like all foundations, has found themselves in a position where things are changing, and I think she's going to change and adjust to the realities of how complicated it's all become.
What the hell does that mean?
Times are changing.
Times they're changing.
Yeah, you know, you had the New York Times this week talk about how they needed to sever their ties from the Clinton Foundation, get out of that business completely, and even Joe Biden is giving some advice in that regard. And it's just, you know, Mrs. Clinton is attacking Judicial Watch for releasing this material and pretending her enemies are out to get her. when in fact the Democrats are the ones telling her run from the Clinton Foundation.
I know. It's hard to dismiss it as a right-wing conspiracy if the New York Times is on board. And finally, Dinesh, to you, it's every day is there's just a piñata of this stuff, literally every single day. And you wonder, though, does it reach a point where it has no political effect, where people just assume that Hillary Clinton's corrupt, they can't be any more shocked, they've lost their capacity for surprise, and it doesn't affect the election? Or does it continue to affect the election?
Well, I think that a true model to understand the Clintons is one has to go abroad and look to something like the foundation that, for example, Juan and Evita Perón set up, a foundation that was largely for their own benefit, but again, masquerading in the form of charity. If there's one thing that the Democrats have learned, is that when you're doing a lot of good for yourself, try to pretend like you're doing good for others and put up a front. So the Clinton Foundation, to my view, it's not even a philanthropy, it's not a charity. No. It's essentially a bribery receptacle for the Clintons masquerading as a charity.
I know, and the sanctimony that they exhibit when you ask them about it is just nauseating. I'm so much more comfortable with the mafia that says, you know what, I'm doing it to get rich. If you don't like it, I'm going to kill you. You know what I mean? They don't lecture you about global warming or transgender bathrooms. You know, they just take their kickbacks. Yeah. I prefer that.
Luca Brasi never thought of putting on a halo.
No, he never did. He never said he was going to cure childhood obesity. It's really disgusting. Guys, thanks a lot for coming on.